that will be your next stage of checking it through. So for me, we've got next week's class, which I will check over your keys and breakdowns for your broad jump. And then you've got your break week, okay, which gives you a bonus week to work on stuff. And then when we come back, that'll be the next week after that. So you actually have 2 weeks to finish up all your in-betweens, right? So you got a little bit of extra bonus time on this one, right? So there should be no reason why this stuff is incomplete. Okay, so now let's start to plan out our basic keys. We're just going to do the broad keys, the ABC keys. We're not going to do the A1 or D1 or anything like that. So we're going to start off with our character over on the side here. Make sure that your character is far enough over to the side that you have space for them to anticipate back, but you also want to make sure that you've got enough space that when your character comes forward, they're not going to go off the edge of the screen. Okay, I've seen lots of people do that, where you get your character and you plant their feet here in this position, and when you bend them over, they're actually off screen over here. So you want to make sure that it's balanced properly. So find your start point where you can bring your character's butt back without going off the edge of the field, and a recovery landing point where you've got enough space for the character to overlap over here. Also be careful of the height, that you don't take your character out of the field of vision or off your sheet of paper up here. Right? Now the jump has to be enough that it's a logical jump for the character, right? And a logical distance as well. What I don't want to see is a little tiny jump to where the character goes back and goes boink like that. Right? It has to travel across the page in a good distance. Right? Make the character parallel to the picture plane, so you don't necessarily have to have them getting bigger as they come towards you. If you want to do that and you feel that you can handle the drawings and fight the shrinkage thing, go ahead and do it. Right? But I'll leave that up to you. So start off with your character in their first ready to go pose. Now, one of the other things that I'm going to put a limitation on the type of jump that you can do. I don't want your character doing Superman jumps where they fly through the air. It has to look like they're actually propelling themselves. I don't want any kung fu kicks. I don't want any spins, and I don't want any flips. Okay? So there's no trapeze type thing where they, not trapeze, but I don't want anything where they do any acrobatic type stuff. Right? I can use my same character from the jump up and down. So once again, just keep your character very loosely blocked out, something like that. Remember, we're building up our energy here, so my first anticipation key going down and back is not going to be as big as my second one. So I'll take the character down like this for the first one, then back up again, but not to this same start position here, right? Because my dynamics of what are going on here are going to be slightly different. So again, when you act this out, you'll get a sense of what's going on. So I might want to hyperextend the character's arms or the legs here and throw them back like this. So back like that. And then, yeah, bring the shoulders and arms forward like this. And then this is going to be my big one. But once again, because I'm taking the character forward, I'm going to want to take the butt back further. And maybe really push the body this way. So what I'm actually going to do here is, I know this looks slightly weird here. I'm going to counterbalance the character. I'm going to bend the legs slightly, but not down the same way I did, because my breakdown drawing between this one here is actually going to go down, then I'm going to come back up. All right? So there's a downward action back up into this position here while the body goes down fully in this position, and then I'm going to swing down and up. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm going to have another key drawing where it's a secondary key because the body will be progressing up and forward. So this one here, I have my arms way up like this. I might do some perspective stuff here with something like that, just to flare the arms out. So then my next primary key position, or actually my breakdown position on the thrust, would be with my toes here, and I'd be driving up and forward this way. So again, I'm just very broadly gesturing this in, just to give you a sense. And this would be my strobe drawing. The arms moving forward like this. Okay, so that's just a very loose, get you the idea. But between these two, I would have my secondary key, where as my body is going forward into that path of action, my path of action goes through here. So I'd begin my arm swing and maybe do a little bit of a strobe in here as well. You can do strobes on multiple drawings. It's not just the one major in between. So that would be my body's action, but my legs, my feet would be locked into position here. And I'm going to have to modify my body because the dynamics of my legs, see how they don't match in? It becomes disjointed. So I do have to match that in there. And I have to pull my body down to there, but still following that overall path of action. So this would be now my modified position here. So see how the body goes down and forward? Okay, so it gives more of a push off to that point. So this drawing, while it's an in-between, goes in here as a secondary key. I might want to pull the legs down further just to get more of a push off on that. So here's where your roll flip is now going to come into play, where you can now take your stack of drawings and roll flip them like this to see whether or not your drawings are moving the way you want them to. So now what I want to do is I want to go to my high point. But there's a little trick in here that I want you to be aware of. And when you go to the website, you'll see the same thing that I did with the jump up and down. I have a PDF page that talks about things to watch out for, things not to do. So what I don't want you to do in this action is I don't want you to have your character thrusting forward, coming up to a high point here, and then creating a pivot point for your head, where the head freezes and the body pendulums through this way. Okay? Because the momentum, the force of your drive of your body, yes, it's going up, and yes, we're going to arch the body back, but in reality, the overall path of action is this. We've got an arcing path of action. So yeah, you're going to have a high point that's in the center here, but it's traveling across. There is no point where the body actually stops. You're not going to have multiple drawings with the head locked into that position there. Okay? Otherwise, it creates a stiff pivot type action that goes block out, pivot, and down. The equivalent to that would be if you have your character doing the jump up and down. As the character jumps up, reaches a high point, and suddenly the head freezes in its position. Okay, you still want to have a little bit of up and down. Even if your body overlaps and catches up, you still want it to move up a little bit, as opposed to it just locking into space as if someone jabbed it with a fork and said, stay right there, don't move anywhere. It locks it out too much. So we do want to have a progression where the head is also advancing across. So yes, you will have a high point there, but you've got to remember your in-betweens do move from and to. So at this high point here, this is where you can decide how you're going to get your body to transition through this. And I'll let you decide how you're going to approach the legs. If you want to, you could have the legs trailing back like this. Okay, with the hips leading first and the legs following afterwards, or if you want to bring the knees up high into this position here, you can do that as well, or you can have them out here. Okay, you decide how you're going to do it. Same thing with the arms. As you get to your high point, your arms are eventually going to sort of pull up and separate a little bit. So you might have your elbows touching. So there's the structure of your elbows, but your actual arms will flare out. Like that. And then as the character comes down on the opposite side, and here again I'm going to do that breakdown drawing. I'll let you choose here as well how you're going to have your character land. If you want to, you can have one leg staying up and one leg coming down, or you can have both legs coming down at the same time. Okay, you choose which leg you want to have up, which leg you want to have down. Don't have them both up in this position here, because you have to have your character stretching. So this is similar to the descending energy ball bounce, where we did that stretch position on the way down when the character comes down. Okay, so now in the instance of the descending energy ball bounce, remember we kept it as a circle on that drawing because nothing was affecting the ball. We did it on the bounce up because it goes from a compression point to a stretching position, then recovers back to its high point. So that's similar to what we did here. In this pose here, there's our ball stretching on its way up. But now because this is a character, we're going to stretch the character on the way down. So now this ball turns into an oval stretching this way. Right? So there are reasons why we do stretch and squash. And this would be one of the obvious reasons, because the character is a character. So put one leg down if you want to, or two legs down, totally up to you. I'll do it with the one leg up and one leg down. And then I've got to get my arms okay, so we got to unfold and stretch. And then when my character lands, so this is not necessarily my contact point. It could be the heel contact point, but it's not actually the foot down contact point. So that's what we do next, where the foot plants here. You don't necessarily have to have this one come down at the same time. So in this next key position, you don't have to have both feet down at the same time. You could do a 1-2. Right? So this one could be our contact point for the foot with the bent knee position here. We have to follow our overall path of action here. That's where my butt would be. In like that. Actually, I'll shift it over here because this leg here still has to be. So it could be like that. And then on the next drawing, which would be my next in-between, that's where I put the other foot down. Okay. The arms act exactly the same way the tail would act on your double ball bounce. As it comes in, you have to follow the path of action that's been created by the shoulders, because that's the leading part. Okay, if we treat this as a double ball bounce with the tail, here's the ball that's attached to the tail. And where this ball, the shoulder joint, goes, that's where your arm has to follow through on that path of action. It can't go anywhere else. Right? So in this drawing here, I can't stick my arm out here. It would look weird. I also can't stick it in here, because that could look weird unless I do a bend on it. And that's where we get into the pendulum swing theory, where you have to lead and pull. Okay, so something's going to have to drag here. So you could do this position here, going from here to here. There's my path of action now on the hand, and that would dictate that the hands now have to follow a different path of action, kicking out in front. Okay, so it's all cause and effect. What's going to happen next, and why is it happening? Is it logical? Does it make sense, and is it following the path of action? Every drawing you do will dictate what the next drawing does, essentially. So, in essence, when you have your character jumping up this high, it will automatically dictate all the following action, right? So now your character, when they cushion and hit their low point here, they have to hit a fairly good low point. They can't just stop. They can't just go to that position there. That's too stiff. Clunk. Okay? It doesn't make sense to be in that position because all the momentum that was built up and the path of action and the distance that the character traveled, that does not make for a logical conclusion to that overall path of action. It's going to look like the character stuck to the ground and for whatever reason, some force stopped them from moving forward. Okay? Too much energy has been built up and thrown in that direction that no, that doesn't make sense and it wouldn't work. So we've got to carry this through to its logical conclusion. And I've seen this in the jump up and down, where I've seen a lot of people have their character jump up a certain height, and then the recovery is like, what the heck is that? There's no recovery at all. It's like, big jump here, and then, burn, like that. Can't do that. Okay? It doesn't follow through. So, if you want to, the other thing that I'll allow you to do is if you want to, you can do a staggered foot position, where this foot comes slightly forward. Okay? And if you really want to get fancy, is you can have the other foot step forward after that. Okay, so it's like a step, step, step. Okay? It's not any more difficult. Same number of drawings to the whole thing. It's just what are you going to do with the different parts of the body to make it get to that position. So now, as we get into this stage of the drawing here, it's simply a matter